So some news about the Timberwolves and the number 1 pick came out recently, that the Timberwolves are afraid of making the number 1 pick because they're afraid of fucking it up. Now, I've been watching a lot of NBA YouTubers talk about this because this idea has floated around NBA YouTube for the past 2 weeks, and a lot of NBA YouTubers are defending this mindset. They're saying it's okay for the Timberwolves to trade the pick because they're correct in this type of mindset of being afraid to make the number 1 pick based off of their track record. And I entirely disagree. I don't think this is the right mindset to have. The title is the idea that popped up in my head. It's time for the Timberwolves to grow the fuck up. If we look at their past 10 years in terms of drafting, we have to start in 2009, where the Timberwolves had 2 picks in the top 10, number 5 and number 6. At number 5, they took Ricky Rubio, and number 6, they took Johnny Flynn. 2 small point guards in Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn. Ricky Rubio was coming out of Spain, he was overseas, he was kind of a highly touted prospect. I don't think Johnny Flynn had the same upside that Ricky Rubio had, but they drafted 2 point guards. They were definitely not going to be able to play on the floor together because they're both under the height of 6'3". Not only did they do that, they also passed on a point guard who, I don't know, became a back-to-back MVP, 3-time NBA champion, Stephen Curry. He was the immediate pick after 5 and 6. He was picked at 7. They passed on him. They took 2 point guards and passed on one of the best point guards in history. They also passed on DeMar DeRozan at number 9 and Drew Holiday at number 17. 2010, Minnesota Timberwolves draft Wesley Johnson at number 4. Players that they passed on: DeMarcus Cousins, who was drafted at number 5 in the same year, Gordon Hayward at 9, Paul George at 10. Fast forward, 2011, they have the number 2 pick, and with the number 2 pick, the Timberwolves take Derek Williams. Some notable names that they passed on: Kemba Walker, Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard at 9, 11, and 15. Now, I'm not really going to hate on the draft pick itself because I remember when I was like 10 or 11 years old going into this draft, Derek Williams was a top prospect. A lot of mock drafts had him going at number 2. So I'm not really going to hate on the pick because if I do so in hindsight, that would just be so short-sighted. It's so easy to hate on draft picks in hindsight because we know what these players develop to be. But a lot of these players going into NBA drafts are projected to go so high because they have the talent and potential that makes them deserving of going so high. So a lot of it doesn't really fall on Minnesota's lack of drafting talent. A lot of it just goes to their inability to develop that talent. Obviously, Derek Williams had a lot of talent coming into the NBA. He was a freakishly athletic power forward that could put the ball on the floor, but for some reason he just didn't develop. And I think, well, that's going to be the case if we keep on looking forward, going into the future with Minnesota's draft history, that they just could not develop the talent that they drafted. High-end talent as well. Fast forward to 2012, they didn't really have a first-round pick. They had a late second-round pick, so I'm not going to talk about that one. In 2013, at number 9, they drafted Trey Burke. Now, this was the Anthony Bennett goes number 1 year, so I'm not really going to hate on this draft pick too much, even though they passed on CJ McCollum at 10, Steven Adams at 12, and of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo at number 15. In 2014, Timberwolves had the number 13 pick and they drafted Zach LaVine. This was kind of the first actual good pick that Minnesota made. There weren't really some names that came after Zach LaVine that I could really be frustrated with Minnesota like not taking. Obviously, Nikola Jokic was in, I think he was in the 2014 draft and he was the second round pick, so I'm not going to give them too much blame for that. Nobody saw Jokic becoming the player that he is today. But they also traded for Andrew Wiggins this year, who was the number 1 pick. And they traded Kevin Love for Andrew Wiggins. And Andrew Wiggins won Rookie of the Year this year. So he had the talent coming into the league. He won Rookie of the Year. He was the consensus number 1 pick. He was called Maple Jordan. He was on hella magazines coming out of high school and college. He won Rookie of the Year. So the talent and upside and potential was there. But obviously we know this story. Andrew Wiggins did not live up to any of the expectations that were put on him. Now, a lot of that can be attributed to his lack of a motor, lack of a drive. But like I said, this is a running theme for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They just cannot find a way to develop the talent that they have. More often than not, they cannot develop any talent that they draft. The following year, 2015, they draft Karl Anthony Towns at number 1. So this is not a failure. This is not a miss. This is not a bust. Karl-Anthony Towns is looking like the best player to come out of that draft, depending on who you ask. In my opinion, I think he is. In 2016, this is kind of where it falls downhill. At number 5, the Timberwolves drafted Chris Dunn. Now, I don't really think there was a lot of buzz outside of the top 2 for this draft class. I remember it was Ben Simmons and Brandon Ingram that were the consensus number 1 and number 2. But I mean, some names that the Timberwolves passed on include Buddy Hield at number 6, Jamal Murray at number 7, Domantas Sabonis at 11, and Pascal Siakam at 27. Chris Dunn, he's just developed into being a great perimeter defender, but who's a guy who's mainly just going to be a backup point guard for his career. You pass on, or you draft that player while passing up on Jamal Murray, who's going to be an all-star in the future, Domantas Sabonis, who is already an all-star, and Pascal Siakam, an all-star starter and an NBA champion. In 2017, the Timberwolves actually drafted Lauri Markkanen, who went on to have a really great rookie year, but that rookie year was for Chicago because the Timberwolves traded Lauri for Jimmy Butler. They traded Lauri, Zach LaVine, and Chris Dunn for Jimmy Butler. But I mean, the pick at number 7 in itself was a good pick, because if you're an NBA fan, even though Lauri Markkanen's had a disappointing past 2 years, if you're a real NBA fan, you know the type of talent, potential, and upside that Lauri Markkanen has. Even though they did pass on Donovan Mitchell, who was drafted at 13, Bam Adebayo, who was drafted at 14, and John Collins, who was drafted at 19, you can't really hate on the pick of Lauri Markkanen. But again, it doesn't really matter because they traded him anyway. In 2018, they did not have a high first-round pick because the Timberwolves were actually good that year with Jimmy Butler on the team. Their first-round pick fell at 20, where they drafted Josh Okogie, and this was actually a really good pick too. I think Josh Okogie is great value to get at number 20. I think if you redrafted the 2018 draft, I think he would come a lot higher. I think he might even sneak at the tail end of the lottery. In 2019, the Timberwolves drafted Cameron Johnson at 11, but they traded up to get Jared Culver at number 6. Not only did they trade Cam Johnson, but I think they traded like a couple of second-round picks too. We've seen what Jared Culver's done in his rookie year. His rookie year was really disappointing. So maybe instead of trading the number 11 pick to get Jared Culver, they could have taken PJ Washington, a lethal stretch 4, who was drafted at number 12, or they could have taken somebody who was a prime performer in the NBA Finals this year, Tyler Hero, who was drafted at number 13. So Jared Culver, thus far, it's a little early to tell, but thus far Jared Culver has kind of been a bust for them, and they kind of passed on players that could have been a lot more productive for the team. So what this really says, honestly, it could say 3 things. Either the Timberwolves are horrible at drafting or scouting, like historically horrible. How can you be this bad over a 10-year span? Or the Timberwolves are horrible at player development. That's the sentiment that I believe the most. Or it's a combination of both. If I had to kind of divide up the blame, I put 70% of the blame on player development and 30% of it on scouting and drafting. Because like I said before, all of these players, if you're going to be drafted top 5, they all have a reason to be drafted top 5. They have the talent, they have the potential, they have the upside to deserve being drafted so highly. But a lot of it falls on the team being able to cultivate the talent that they bring in. And the fact that the Timberwolves have continued to fuck up drafting and developing their young talent, it speaks to their upper management. I don't really know if they're attempting to improve their player development team. Are they really attempting to improve their scouting department? If they've been coming up short in this side of their basketball operations, are they even firing the people who are fucking up, and are they looking to hire people that can actually do the job? Or are they just standing pat, accepting that it's the players' fault for not developing? And if they are like constantly seeking to find people that can do the job, how could they not find anyone after 10 fucking years? That's kind of ridiculous. So now if we fast forward back to present day, like I said at the beginning of the video, the Timberwolves have the first overall pick. And if we think of that by itself, it's incredibly rare for a franchise to have the first overall pick winning the lottery twice in a 6-year span. It's incredibly rare. The Timberwolves just want to squander that blessing and just trade away the first round pick. Not only have they won the lottery twice in the past 6 years, but they were also able to trade for the number 1 pick in 2014 and get Andrew Wiggins. So it's it's kind of ridiculous how lucky the Minnesota Timberwolves have been over the past 6 drafts. I don't know, it's just very disappointing to see the Timberwolves handle young talent. So with this first overall pick, in my opinion, the Timberwolves have 4 options. Number 1, they can draft Anthony Edwards. Nobody would hate on this pick, but if Anthony Edwards doesn't develop into a star caliber player, you can attribute it to Minnesota's horrible player development. Now, something that kind of would scare Minnesota away from drafting Anthony Edwards, the questions about his motor and motivation. These are kind of scouting notes that have come to the public over the past 2 weeks, that there are some questions about Anthony Edwards' drive to improve. That kind of strikes some similarities to Andrew Wiggins, another player that's been in Minnesota and just did not develop. He has basically been the same player over the past 5 years. Maybe that's something that would scare Minnesota off, some deja vu. Second option, drafting LaMelo Ball. They would do this mainly if they think that LaMelo Ball has the highest ceiling in the draft. I think he has the highest ceiling in the draft, but I think he also has the highest bust potential. Pause. He's a really risky pick, and you throw in the aspect that if they do draft LaMelo, they'll have a backcourt of D'Angelo Russell and LaMelo Ball, which will be very questionable on defense, so I would pass on that. Third option would be them trading for a lower pick in the lottery, but to also get some more future assets. I think I heard that the Minnesota Timberwolves really like Obi Toppin, and he's not a player who's worth the number 1 pick, so they maybe could trade down to 5, 6, or 7 and get Obi Toppin with a later pick, but also net some extra draft assets. So maybe a hypothetical would be them trading down to number 6 with Atlanta and then taking Obi Toppin with that pick. And then the fourth option would be them trading for a solidified star. This would eliminate the risk of them messing up the draft entirely. Some players that I thought of that Minnesota might want to trade for, this would kind of be like the cream of the crop type of players that they would want to get for the number 1 pick. Bradley Beal, Ben Simmons, and Devin Booker, but I doubt that any of these 3 players will be traded for the number 1 pick. For the first priority reason is that the number 1 pick this year isn't as valuable as it's been in the past because this draft class is relatively weak at the top. Like, there's no bona fide superstar or generational talent available at number 1 as there has been in the past. Zion Williamson was viewed as that. DeAndre Ayton was the consensus number 1 pick going into the draft in 2018. Markelle Fultz was the consensus number 1 pick going into 2017. Same with Ben Simmons. That player isn't really available in the 2020 class. And then if we just look at these star players by themselves, I don't think Bradley Beal is available. I said this in a prior video that Bradley Beal, I think the Wizards kind of want to see the aspect of Bradley Beal and John Wall being together in the backcourt again, so I don't think he'll be available immediately. Ben Simmons, I think his value is a lot higher than the number 1 pick. Same with Devin Booker, and I think the Phoenix Suns want to ride their bubble high where they were undefeated in the bubble. I think they kind of want to continue with that momentum going into the next season and really be successful. But I don't want to get confused here. Me telling the Timberwolves to grow the fuck up and to man up and take a draft, or to man up and make the number 1 pick, like, in my opinion, the decision that I would make, I would draft Anthony Edwards, and I would really focus on trying to develop him to be that number 3 star in Minnesota. But if they want to trade the pick, that's not my issue. If they trade it, it should be for a reason that they think it's the best decision to make. That they find a prospect that they really, really, really want, but they believe they can get that prospect at a later draft pick, so they get that prospect while trading down, but netting also some future draft capital. Or they find an offer for a star that they're 100% confident can help their team and find success immediately. Those are reasons to really trade the pick. I don't want them to trade it for the simple reason that they think they're going to fuck it up. I don't want them to trade it out of fear of making a mistake. Because that type of mindset, they're just letting themselves off the hook and they're accepting that, oh, we can't draft players because we haven't been able to do it in the past. We can't develop young talent because we fucked it up in the past so many times. That's a losing mindset. Not just in drafting, not just in the NBA, not just in any profession, but in life.